I knew something was off the moment we pulled into the driveway. My mom's house was exactly as I remembered it. Bright, neat, and alive with the kind of energy only a big family barbecue can bring. The smell of grilling burgers and hot dogs filled the air, mixing with the scent of freshly cut grass. The sound of kids laughing, chasing each other through the yard, added a layer of comfort to the scene, but there was an underlying tension that I couldn't shake. My wife, Amanda, was already silent as we stepped out of the car, her hand cool and distant in mine. She didn't even try to smile when my mom waved us over from the grill, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she flipped another batch of burgers. "Hey, Mom," I greeted, trying to sound normal, but I could feel Amanda's distance pulling at the edge of my words. "Hi, sweetheart." She pulled me in for a tight hug, and I noticed how she glanced at Amanda, then back at me. "Everything okay?" she asked, almost too casually. I gave a small nod, not ready to admit anything was wrong, even if Amanda's silence said it all. Chris, my older brother, was already at the picnic table with his wife, Claire, and their kids, laughing over some silly game the kids had started. They looked happy, at ease. I wished Amanda would loosen up, just for a little while, but she barely looked at anyone. She picked at her plate, only a few bites taken from the spread I knew my mom had spent hours preparing. Grilled chicken, potato salad, corn on the cob, and deviled eggs. She usually loved this stuff. But today, she didn't even seem to notice it. "Everything all right, babe?" I asked quietly, sitting beside her. She nodded but didn't meet my eyes, just pushing the food around on her plate like it didn't matter. The party was in full swing. My dad had joined us, chatting with the neighbors, sharing his typical dad jokes, while my younger cousins chased each other in circles. It should have been fun, but Amanda's quiet presence seemed to drain the light out of everything. I tried to join in, talking to my parents and Chris, but my mind kept drifting back to Amanda, who had barely said a word all evening. The more I tried to engage, the further she seemed to pull away. A simple family barbecue, yet it felt like the beginning of something unraveling. And I didn't know if I could stop it. The night stretched on, and I kept glancing at Amanda, hoping she'd loosen up, that maybe this was just a phase or something work-related. But every time I caught her eyes, she looked right through me. Her smile, if you could even call it that, was tight, like she was holding back something she didn't want anyone to see. I tried talking to her again, leaning over to say, "You okay, babe?" She gave me that half-hearted nod, her eyes staying fixed on her plate, then added, "Yeah, fine." Her voice was flat, and I could tell she wasn't listening. Not really. It wasn't always like this. There had been a time when we couldn't wait to get to these family gatherings. Laughing with my parents, teasing Chris, joining in with the kids. But over the last few months, something had changed. It started slow, little jabs here and there about my family. Her complaints about them being too much began to feel less like offhand comments and more like a pattern. "Your mom is suffocating," she'd said a couple of months ago, her face twisted in frustration after one of my mom's unsolicited advice sessions. "She never just lets me be, always acting like she knows what's best for everyone." I'd brushed it off at first. I thought it was just stress from work, long hours, deadlines, the usual stuff, but it kept coming up. I remember the last time we argued about it. We were sitting on the couch, the TV playing something neither of us was watching. She'd just finished another rant about how my parents were too involved. She'd even called my dad overbearing once, said his jokes were always the same and that they made her feel like an outsider. I told her it was just who they were, that she had to let it go. That didn't go over well. "You always take their side," she snapped, eyes flashing. "I don't belong here, and you don't even care." I remember that feeling, like she was accusing me of something I wasn't even aware I was doing. I told her to stop being so dramatic, to calm down. In hindsight, maybe I should have seen it, should have recognized how badly she was pulling away, but at the time I thought it was just a phase. Then there was the call from Mom, just a week ago, when she asked if everything was okay. "I don't know, honey," my mom had said, concern thick in her voice. "It just seems like Amanda's, I don't know, different lately. Is she all right?" I didn't know what to say, because I didn't have an answer. I didn't think Amanda was acting any differently. But my mom had always been able to sense things before I could. I tried to brush it off, said Amanda was just stressed. But the nagging doubt in my mind wouldn't go away. Had I really been blind to how bad it had gotten? I shifted in my seat at the barbecue, feeling the weight of my mom's words now that I was looking at Amanda again. She hadn't eaten anything for the last half hour, just poking at her food, and the distance between us felt like a chasm, bigger with every second that passed. I tried one last time, my voice low as I leaned toward her. Amanda, come on, talk to me. What's going on? She didn't look up. Nothing, she muttered, her fingers idly twisting the fork in her hand. It was like I was talking to a stranger, someone who didn't care to even pretend they were engaged. My heart sank a little. It wasn't just her silence anymore. It was the way she was slowly withdrawing from everything. The way she refused to join in on conversations, even with Chris and Claire, who were teasing each other about some old family story. Want me to grab you a drink? I asked, hoping maybe I could break through whatever this was. But Amanda didn't even look up. Do whatever you want, she said, her words as flat as her gaze. I stood up, feeling like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't understand. The whole night felt like it was shifting under me, the ground unstable. My family carried on like nothing was wrong, but I could feel the tension in the air, the awkwardness of Amanda pulling further away, and my own frustration building. I grabbed a beer and tried to make small talk with my dad, but every time I turned back to Amanda, she was still in her world, a world where I didn't seem to exist. I barely had time to register the weight of Amanda's silence before it exploded. She stood up suddenly, knocking her chair back with a scrape that made everyone turn. The whole backyard seemed to freeze, like the air had gone still in anticipation. I can't stand this anymore. Amanda's voice rang out, sharp and cutting through the noise of the barbecue. Your family is a nightmare. They never respect me. I'm done pretending everything is okay. My heart skipped a beat. For a second, I couldn't move. The words didn't make sense coming from her. Not here, not now. The guests, the kids, everyone. There was a sudden hush, like the entire world paused to take a breath. My dad's hand stilled on the carving knife, his face falling, the color draining from it. My mom, who was always so put together, looked like she'd been slapped, her mouth opening and closing as if she didn't know what to say. Even Chris and Claire, who had been talking just seconds ago, were wide-eyed, staring at Amanda like she was a stranger. Amanda was trembling, her chest heaving as she turned to face me. I can't take it anymore, she continued, pointing at me like I was the one to blame. You don't get it, do you? You just sit there while your family picks at me, undermines me. And you? You always take their side. Always. Her voice cracked at the end, but her eyes were cold, a look I didn't recognize. I didn't know what to do. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the anger starting to boil, but there was something else there too, something I'd been holding back for a while. Without thinking, I stood up. The backyard was still quiet, all eyes on us, waiting for something to happen. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out flat, colder than I expected. Fine, I said, my hand already reaching for my phone in my pocket. I'll start the process right now. Amanda's eyes widened, and for a second, I saw something flicker. Shock, disbelief. She opened her mouth to say something, but I wasn't listening anymore. I pressed the button to unlock my phone and pulled up my lawyer's number. Wait, what are you doing? She demanded, her voice rising in panic, but I didn't look at her. I just kept scrolling, dialing the number with deliberate slowness. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, but it didn't matter. The thought of going back to what we had, of pretending everything was fine, felt like a lie I couldn't swallow anymore. The phone rang once, twice, before Mr. Turner's voice came through the line. Mr. Adams, he said, his voice calm and professional. How can I help you? I cleared my throat, still not looking at Amanda. I need to start the divorce process. Right now. Are you sure? Mr. Turner asked, his voice more cautious now, but still steady. I took a deep breath, the tension in my chest rising. I could feel Amanda behind me, watching me, her presence like a weight I couldn't shake. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure. Can you get the paperwork ready? I want to move forward with this tonight." There was a long pause, and then Mr. Turner said, "I'll have the documents ready by Monday morning. I'll take care of everything on this end." "Good," I replied, my voice cutting through the quiet air. "Thanks." I hung up, the finality of it ringing in my ears. The phone call ended, but the room felt like it was still buzzing, like the whole backyard was holding its breath. Amanda was staring at me now, her face pale, her lips trembling with words she didn't know how to say. You're serious?" she whispered, disbelief leaking into her voice. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I just turned to my parents, who were still frozen in place, wide-eyed and shocked. "Anyone want more barbecue?" I asked, my voice unervingly calm, like nothing had just exploded in front of everyone. My dad cleared his throat, glancing between Amanda and me before returning to the grill like it was any other day. He didn't know what to do. Hell, neither did I. The moment felt thick with silence, the kind of silence that comes after a storm has passed, leaving only the debris behind. My mother, ever the peacekeeper, refilled drinks like it was all routine, but I could see the hurt in her eyes, the confusion. Amanda was still staring at me, but I wasn't going to let her see how much this was costing me. The look on her face, hurt, shocked, and maybe even a little betrayed, didn't matter anymore. I was done being the guy who always tried to fix things, always tried to make her happy. It was over, and I wasn't about to back down now. I pressed the phone to my ear, my thumb hovering over the speaker button. I could feel Amanda standing behind me, her presence like a weight, her silence louder than any of the arguments we'd had. She wasn't speaking, but I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven, like she was trying to decide whether to say something or not. The phone rang once, then twice. "Mr. Adams." Mr. Turner's voice came through, cool and professional. "How can I help you today?" I didn't waste time. "I'm calling to start the divorce process." There was a pause, and I could almost hear the lawyer sit up straighter, sensing the seriousness in my voice. "Of course. Are you sure this is what you want? It's a big step." I took a breath. "Yeah, this is what I want. She's made it clear that this is what she wants too. I'm just following through." Behind me, I could feel Amanda's tension shift. She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. Wait, you don't mean that." I didn't mean what I said. I was just angry. I didn't mean it. But I didn't let her words land. I wasn't going to back down, not now. My eyes stayed on the ground in front of me as I spoke into the phone, keeping my tone steady, like I had planned this out in advance, like I was already past the point of turning back. "Mr. Turner," I said, keeping my voice calm, "I need you to move forward with this tonight. I want the documents ready by Monday morning." "Understood," the lawyer said, and I could hear the efficiency in his voice now, like this was just another case to him. "I'll make sure everything is processed. We'll have the paperwork ready by then. I'll handle all the details on my end." Amanda's breath hitched behind me, and I could feel her getting agitated, her words bubbling up like a dam ready to burst. "No, listen to me," she demanded, her voice rising, sharp and pleading. "You're overreacting. I was just frustrated. I didn't mean it, okay? I don't want a divorce. I'm sorry. We can talk this through." I closed my eyes for a second, letting her words wash over me. I was done. I was done with the excuses, done with the silence, done with pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. "You said it, Amanda. You're the one who wanted this. I'm just honoring what you've already made clear. There's no turning back." She wasn't used to hearing me talk like this, cold, detached, not bending, not folding under pressure. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I had control of the situation, like I wasn't just being dragged along in her wake. I didn't mean it," she whispered, her voice now frantic, pleading, trying to reach through the phone. "I was just upset. Can't we just fix this? Please, we can talk about it, work through it together. Just don't do this." I didn't turn around. I didn't need to look at her. The decision's made. I'm not going back on it. This isn't just your decision, Amanda. It's mine too. The line went quiet for a second, and I could almost feel her trying to process it, her eyes boring into the back of my head, desperate for me to show some crack in my resolve. Okay, Mr. Turner said, breaking the silence. I'll begin the paperwork tonight. It'll be ready Monday morning. You'll get everything you need to move forward. I looked at my phone for a second before I hung up, my thumb pressing the red button, cutting off the call. The sound of the line going dead seemed louder than it should have been, like a door slamming shut, final and irreversible. I turned around, then. Amanda was standing there, frozen, her face pale, her lips trembling like she couldn't decide whether to cry or scream. The anger that had been in her voice earlier was gone, replaced by something else. Fear, maybe. Or maybe just the realization that she'd lost control of everything. Are you happy now? She asked quietly, the words dripping with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. Her eyes searched mine, like she was waiting for me to break. Is this really what you want? I met her gaze. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even upset. I just felt done. I'm not the one who wanted this, I said softly, the words cutting through the thick air between us. You did. She didn't respond, her eyes locking on mine, searching for something, anything, to change. But I didn't feel that need to fix things anymore. I had already made my decision. As she stood there, frozen in place, I realized there was no coming back. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. I sat back down at the table, the weight of the moment hanging in the air like smoke. My fingers wrapped around the bottle of beer in front of me, the cold glass grounding me in something solid, something real. I glanced around the backyard, feeling the eyes of my family on me. No one knew what to do. Some of them were too stunned to speak. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the awkward silence thick enough to cut with a knife. Chris, my older brother, shifted in his chair, running a hand through his hair like he was trying to figure out how to make sense of it all. Claire, his wife, didn't look much better. She stared at the ground, her lips pressed tight like she wanted to disappear. I could see her hand clutching Chris's arm, her fingers digging into his sleeve. My mom, ever the peacekeeper, kept her back turned to the table, quietly refilling drinks, her movements deliberate, as if nothing was wrong. The clink of the ice in the glass was the only sound that broke the silence. She didn't meet anyone's eyes. It was like she was pretending that nothing had just happened, pretending like the world hadn't just cracked open. Dad, though, he was the most normal. He just picked up the carving knife again, like the whole thing was a minor interruption. He resumed cutting the roast, the knife making that familiar sound on the cutting board. The noise felt almost comforting, like his calmness was somehow a way of trying to restore balance, even though everything had shifted. Amanda, meanwhile, stood off to the side, her face flushed red with a mix of anger and disbelief. She hadn't said a word since the phone call ended, but her eyes were locked on me. Her gaze felt like a weight pressing on me, her betrayal hanging in every look she shot my way. She didn't know how to react, but I could see it in her eyes. She felt betrayed. She thought I'd break, that I'd beg her to stay, that I'd fix everything. But I wasn't going to do that. I turned my head slowly, catching her stare, and I didn't flinch. Instead, I asked, in the calmest voice I could muster, "Anyone want more barbecue?" The words felt out of place, almost like they didn't belong in a moment like this. But it was the only thing I could think of to break the tension, to show that I wasn't going to fold. It wasn't anger that made me ask it, but detachment. The kind of detachment that comes from realizing you've done everything you can, and there's no going back. The kind of detachment that makes you realize, even if everyone's uncomfortable, they're still here. They're still sitting at the table, pretending like everything is fine. The backyard was still, the tension palpable, but no one answered. My mom kept moving around, pretending like everything was just fine, while my dad sliced through another piece of meat, completely unfazed by the storm that had just passed through our family. Chris gave me a tight, awkward smile, like he didn't know how to react but didn't want to pick a side. Claire kept her eyes on her lap. Amanda didn't even flinch. She just looked at me, her expression softening into something I couldn't quite place. But I saw it, the realization that she had lost control, that I wasn't going to let her drag me back into whatever game she thought we were still playing. I took a long pull from my beer, staring at her. She didn't break my gaze, but it was clear she was struggling to figure out what was next. "I'm sorry," she said, but it was weak, a whisper. There was no real apology in it, just a desperate attempt to reach me, to twist things back in her favor. But I wasn't going to let her. Not anymore. I didn't respond right away. The silence between us stretched longer than it had before, but this time it didn't bother me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. The family continued to eat, the clinking of silverware and the low hum of conversation slowly filling in the gaps where the tension had been. It was like everyone had just decided to move on, to pretend it hadn't just happened. But there was a shift in the air, a weight in the atmosphere that no one could ignore. For the first time in months, I felt a small sense of relief. Not because I was glad it was over, but because the control was finally mine. I wasn't fighting for something that wasn't going to work anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The backyard started to feel small, almost suffocating, as the evening dragged on. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversation. It all felt distant, like I wasn't really there anymore. My mind kept racing back to everything that had led up to this. I couldn't shake the weight of Amanda's cold gaze, the way she'd looked at me like I'd betrayed her. But in a way I had. I had allowed it all to get this far, letting her slowly chip away at our relationship and my family without ever calling her on it. I had ignored the signs. There were so many of them, small things at first, little moments where I should have noticed the shift, but I kept brushing them off. I thought it was stress, work, or just her needing some space. I was too busy making excuses for her, too blind to see that she was shutting me out, not just from herself, but from everyone else too. I remembered the first time it really hit me. It was at a family barbecue last summer. We were all outside like we were today, sitting at the picnic table, eating, laughing, the usual chaos. Everyone was getting ready for a family photo, one of those things we did every year, the group shot that my mom kept in a frame by the front door. Chris had been herding everyone together, and I looked over to find Amanda, sitting by herself, poking at her food. She was staring at the kids, but her eyes weren't soft, like they used to be when she'd play with them. They were cold, distant. "Hey, we're about to take the picture," I said, trying to be casual. "You coming?" She barely looked at me, rolling her eyes like I'd asked her to do something absurd. "I don't want to." It wasn't like her. She'd always been the first one in the group, smiling, pulling kids into the shot, even making fun of the whole thing with my dad about how serious the photo had to be. But that day, she just shrugged me off. "I don't feel like it," she muttered. I'd shrugged it off too, thinking maybe she just wasn't in the mood. But now I realized it was more than that. She was choosing to isolate herself, choosing to separate herself from my family, from the one thing I still cared about. There was the time at Thanksgiving too, when my cousin joked about her job, something lighthearted about her always being the serious one at family gatherings. She'd laughed at first, but when the joke kept going, her face twisted. She rolled her eyes and muttered under her breath. I'd seen it, but I ignored it, telling myself she was just having a rough day. Looking back, it wasn't just stress or a bad mood. She wasn't just having an off day, as I told myself. She was actively withdrawing from everyone. She didn't want to be part of my world anymore, and she didn't care who noticed. And I let it happen. I kept making excuses for her behavior. I'd tell myself she was tired, or stressed from work, or maybe just needing some space. I'd defend her to my family when they noticed, brushing it off as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was her building a wall, one brick at a time, and I never even questioned it. I thought I was being understanding, that I was protecting her feelings, giving her the benefit of the doubt. I was enabling her, letting her push me away while convincing myself it wasn't that bad. Now I could see it so clearly. Every time she dismissed my family, every time she made a snide comment about them being overbearing or too much, I thought she was just venting. I never realized how much that negativity had been eating away at me, how much I'd been internalizing it. I'd started to believe that maybe they were too much, that maybe her complaints had some truth to them. But there was no truth in it, not really. My family wasn't perfect, but they'd always accepted her, always tried to make her feel welcome. She was the one who kept pushing them away, and I'd been too blind to see it, too caught up in trying to keep the peace. The weight of it all hit me then, like a wave crashing over me. I had let her dictate how I felt about everything. I had allowed her to twist my relationship with my family, turning me against them piece by piece, until all that was left was this. Sitting in the backyard, everyone pretending like nothing had just happened, while I felt like I'd lost something I could never get back. And now, as I looked around at my family, going back to their conversations, their light-hearted jokes, the tension in the air was thick, but no one was acknowledging it. Not directly. No one would say what needed to be said. But I didn't care anymore. I had spent so long trying to fix things, trying to make her happy, trying to make everyone get along. I was done. I realized, with a clarity I hadn't felt in months, that it wasn't just Amanda who had checked out of this marriage. I had too. Maybe I'd checked out a long time ago, but I had been too afraid to admit it. The relief that came with that realization was something I hadn't expected. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making a choice for myself. Not for her, not for anyone else. I wasn't going to keep pretending. I wasn't going to keep enabling her bad behavior. The damage had been done, and I was ready to let it go. I woke up the next morning with the remnants of last night still hanging in the air. It was a quiet kind of morning, the kind that follows a storm calm, but with that weight in your chest, like the world is holding its breath, waiting for you to make the next move. The sheets beside me were cold, the space where Amanda had slept empty. I didn't expect her to be there, but it still felt like an absence that hit harder than I thought it would. When I checked my phone, I saw it. A flood of texts from Amanda, her name lighting up my screen in a way I'd been dreading. The first few were apologetic, almost pleading, asking if we could talk, if I'd please just listen. Then, they got frantic, desperate. Texts in all caps about how she didn't mean what she said, how we needed to fix this, that she was losing everything. The last one, though, was the worst. It was angry, sharp, blaming me for making her look crazy in front of everyone. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the messages, but I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I already knew what she was trying to do. Manipulate, twist things, pull me back in. I deleted every single one. It wasn't easy, not with the pit in my stomach still heavy and the weight of last night pressing down on me. But I did it. Every message, gone. Felt like shedding skin, like a weight had been lifted. But there was also exhaustion there, like I'd been holding my breath for so long I was finally exhaling. I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to let her pull me into the same cycle again. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling that told me I should feel bad, like I should be trying to work things out. But I didn't feel bad. I felt free. That's when Mike knocked on my door. I'd been hearing him out in his yard, doing his usual Saturday morning routine, and sure enough, he was standing there with his usual grin, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. "Hey man," he said, looking at me with that raised eyebrow, like he was trying to figure out if he was interrupting something. "You good? Heard a bit of a scene last night." I didn't know how much to tell him, but I wasn't about to lie either. "Yeah, we're just working through some things," I said, trying to sound casual, like I wasn't walking through a minefield in my own head. "You know how it is." He nodded, but I could tell he was waiting for more, his eyes narrowing just a little, as if he wanted to dig deeper. Mike was the type who didn't let things slide, but I wasn't in the mood for a long conversation. I just needed to get out. "Everything okay with you guys? I mean, it didn't seem, well, like it was going well." "Yeah, man," I said, brushing him off with a half-hearted smile. "It's fine. We're just—" I let out a breath, trying to push past the tiredness in my voice. "We're just done pretending." Mike didn't press further, just nodded, understanding that I wasn't going to give him any more details. "All right, well, you know where I am if you need anything." I gave him a small wave as he turned to head back to his house. The moment he was out of sight, I went inside to change into running clothes. I hadn't gone for a run in months. Amanda hated it when I did. She'd always complain that I was gone too long, or that I was avoiding her when I needed space. I'd stopped running, made excuses, letting her make me feel guilty for taking time for myself. But today, none of that mattered. I laced up my sneakers, stepped outside, and started running. My feet hit the pavement with a rhythm I hadn't felt in a while, each step pulling me farther away from the mess of last night, from the weight of everything I'd let slide for far too long. I didn't think about Amanda. I didn't think about the texts. I didn't think about the way she looked at me like I'd betrayed her. I just focused on the road in front of me, the steady beat of my heart, the fresh morning air, the feeling of moving. For the first time in ages, I felt like I was running towards something instead of away from it. The burn in my legs felt good. The stretch in my chest was freeing. It was a kind of peace I hadn't known I needed. I wasn't trapped anymore. I wasn't living in someone else's shadow. I was finally free. The meeting with Mr. Turner was scheduled for 10 a.m., and I showed up early, not wanting to drag this out any longer than I had to. I sat in the waiting area, staring at the polished wooden coffee table, but I wasn't really seeing anything. My mind was elsewhere, running over the conversations, the texts, the way Amanda had tried to twist everything and pull me back in. But I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. Mr. Turner's office had that typical lawyer vibe, clean, professional, but cold. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with legal jargon, and the smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air. He was a guy I'd only met once before, but his calm demeanor and no-nonsense attitude made me feel like I was in good hands. He shook my hand when he walked in, giving me a steady look that said he had a handle on everything, that there was no turning back now. I appreciated that about him, no games, no sugarcoating. "Let's get down to it," he said, sitting down behind his desk and pulling out a file. "I've got the paperwork ready to move forward with the divorce. But we've run into a bit of a situation." I felt a tightening in my chest, bracing for whatever he was going to say next. "Your wife's lawyer reached out yesterday. She's trying to walk things back," Mr. Turner continued, flipping open the file. "She's claiming emotional distress, says it was just a moment of anger, that she doesn't want to go through with the divorce." I closed my eyes for a second, letting that sink in. Of course she was trying to backpedal. Of course she didn't want this to be real. She'd never been able to follow through on anything difficult. "Is that going to complicate things?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though my mind was racing. "No," he replied, flipping through a few more papers. "Not really. She's entitled to try, but legally that's just posturing. The courts won't buy it unless there's something concrete. You've already made it clear you want to proceed. I'm confident this will go smoothly." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. A weight lifted off my shoulders as his words confirmed what I already knew. I'd made the right choice, no matter how messy it got. This was the end, and I wasn't going to let her drag me back into that toxic cycle. "But," Mr. Turner added, "her behavior has been erratic. She's been reaching out to your family, calling them, trying to manipulate them into convincing you to reconsider. That could be an issue, especially if she's getting others involved in this." I sat back in my chair, rubbing a hand over my face. The mental exhaustion hit me all over again. Of course she was doing that. She was never going to let go without a fight, even if it meant pulling in anyone she could. "I don't want her calling anyone else. I don't want anyone caught in the middle," I said, my voice tight. "I'm done with all the games." Mr. Turner nodded. "Understood. We'll set the groundwork for that. I'll make sure everything is handled legally, so it's clear you're not backing down." Just as he was going over the next steps, my phone buzzed on the table in front of me. I glanced at it, instinctively picking it up. It was a text from Chris. "Call me when you get a chance." I sent him a quick reply, letting him know I was in a meeting, but I had a feeling I knew what he wanted to say. Chris had been around when Amanda and I had started drifting apart. He knew the strain, the tension. He'd seen how she'd pulled away, how I'd made excuses for her. Minutes later, as I walked out of Mr. Turner's office, my phone rang. It was Chris. "You good, man?" he asked, his voice low and serious. I talked to Mom. She's been calling you, trying to convince me you're overreacting. I'm fine, I said, not missing a beat. But you're right, she's been reaching out, trying to get you, Dad, anyone to talk me out of this. But it's too late, Chris. I've made my decision. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could almost hear him nodding, his voice steady when he spoke again. We're all behind you. This is your call, but don't let her back in. Don't let her change your mind. I felt a surge of strength, something I hadn't realized I was missing until now. The support, the clarity, the realization that I wasn't alone in this. Chris wasn't just my brother. He was my ally. My family, despite everything, was behind me. I won't, I said firmly, a weight lifting off my chest. I'm done, Chris. I'm not going back. He paused, then added, You've got this, man. I know you do. I ended the call, feeling a renewed sense of resolve. This wasn't just about Amanda anymore. It was about me, about what I was willing to tolerate and what I wouldn't anymore. I was going to move forward, no matter how messy or painful it was. As I walked out of the building, the world felt a little bit lighter. The weight of indecision was gone. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was moving towards something better. And for the first time in a long time, I could see a future that didn't have her in it. I was sitting on the couch, still trying to shake off the weight of the last few days when the doorbell rang. It was a sharp sound, interrupting the quiet of the house. I hadn't been expecting anyone, and for a second, I thought about ignoring it. But then I heard a faint knock. Desperate, like someone who knew they weren't supposed to be here. I stood up, already knowing who it was. When I opened the door, there she was. Amanda. Her hair was messy, her face pale, like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, and there was a tremble in her hands that she tried to hide by clutching her purse tightly. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, like she didn't know how to start. Then her voice cracked. I know I messed up, she said, her eyes pleading with me. I've been thinking about everything, and I know I pushed you too far. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for all of it. Can we just work this out? I'll change. I swear I will. I don't want to lose you. She took a step forward, like she was trying to get closer to me, but I didn't move. I stayed where I was, my feet planted firmly on the ground. I didn't feel the anger I thought I would. I didn't feel the need to yell, to throw everything in her face. I just felt calm, almost detached, like I was looking at someone who wasn't even the person I'd married. You've already shown me who you are, I said quietly, my voice steady. I can't forget that. Her face fell, the hope in her eyes dimming. She took a breath, like she was gathering herself, then stepped closer again. But I can change, I swear it. I've been so stressed, and I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. Please, don't do this. Her words were like a broken record, the same things she'd said 100 times before. But this time, it didn't feel like I was listening. Felt like I was finally hearing the truth. The truth that she wasn't going to change. She never had, and she never would. I shook my head, the weight of everything finally hitting me. No, Amanda. It's too late for apologies. It's been too late for a while now. She looked at me like she couldn't understand what I was saying, like she thought if she just said the right words, I'd change my mind. But I wasn't that guy anymore. She stepped back, eyes wild, face crumpling with frustration. You don't get it. You'll regret this. I swear you'll regret it. I felt a pang of something. Maybe sadness, maybe pity, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I just stood there, steady and unmoving. I won't, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. I watched her for a long moment, the silence between us heavy with everything we'd been through. And then, without another word, she turned and walked away. Her footsteps were quick, almost frantic, like she was running from the reality she couldn't deny anymore. I closed the door behind her, the sound of the latch clicking loud in the quiet house. The moment she was gone, a wave of peace washed over me. It wasn't relief, not exactly. It was something deeper, like I had finally taken control of my own life. I wasn't trapped in the weight of her manipulation anymore. I wasn't going to keep trying to fix something that was already broken. I walked back to the couch, sitting down slowly, my hands resting on my knees. Felt like I could finally breathe again. For the first time in so long, the weight on my chest had lifted. It was over, and I was free.